Welcome to another edition of Broadcasting on the Beach with Halftime Howie, coming to you from Poncho's Cantina in Island Park. And we want to wish all our friends out there in Viewer Land very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy Holidays. And knowing this young man his whole life, Jake Cooper, a man of many talents, and as a counselor, very knowledgeable about the drug crisis in our society. And last year we spent over $500 billion on the drug crisis. And Jake, what's your thoughts on the drug crisis in our society, the fact we spend so much money and it just seems to get worse every year?
Absolutely. I think as a society, when that number, is there, it's about looking ourselves in the mirror and seeing if we're being reactive versus proactive. I think, for us, it almost has to become a problem for us to treat it. But really, if you want to be proactive, we have to look at what's leading, individuals to abuse substances. And there's so many, different factors. But, it's about looking ourselves in the mirror and recognizing, what are we doing, to create, that climate, that environment that, enables so many people to, abuse substances. And, how can we change being to be more proactive instead of reactive with the issue? But it's just so much more than spending. That is a problem. It's families, it's individuals, it's lives, it's futures. It's more than anything that a dollar could place a bill on. And anyone who has lost a child to substance abuse, or anyone who has seen it in their family, will vouch for that. That it's certainly a problem, but that's why we have professionals in the field to really help out as much as we can.
Absolutely. And, we've talked about it several weeks, but it's so important that drug abuse absolutely destroys family, that mothers and fathers that use cocaine and have drug problems, in a way, it's almost like the children are doomed because of their parents' drug abuse in so many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about some of those drugs that you mentioned, cocaine, heroin, those, get put into the genetics of children, or they grow up in those environments where they, feel that that's the way to handle stress, or, for them that's reality, that's life. And, the child will be in very much mirror image of what they see and what goes on in their parents. So it's about creating alternative realities for children to recognize different paths and different possibilities, and that sometimes parents make mistakes, sometimes parents aren't perfect, and when the parent has a difficult time parenting, what are the school systems doing to create a good model of living, and stuff like that. So it's a shame when it gets passed down to children, but it is definitely rapid, and I think it goes so much more than just the drug itself. It could be financial, where people are drugging and trying to sell, because they have nothing else to support themselves with. So it goes more than just drugs. There's a financial, emotional, social, psychological piece to what brings someone to abuse such destructive drugs as you just mentioned, as cocaine and heroin.
And I think it's so important that we stress the fact that a person who is abusing drugs, a drug addict, many times they're in denial. They refuse to get help. They always say, well, I'm not so bad, whatever. Let's talk about the importance of a person going through on cocaine or other drugs, what have you, the importance that they get treatment, they get themselves in a 12-step program, and they get out of that range of denial, and they accept that they have a disease and they must treat their disease to really save their life.
Yeah. I think so much of drugs is what makes substance abuse difficult for anyone to admit is that you recognize that A, you have a problem, but B, your every move has been reliant on something outside of yourself to deal and to cope. So for someone to try to make those changes, it comes from a place where they tell themselves that, oh, I'm the center of change. I have that power. And for many, that's a scary place to be in, because there's so much dependency on what the substance has provided to their lives. They really lose touch with their own power and their own abilities to change their lives. But it's about providing that term called self-efficacy that I really, hone into, and believing that we have the power to alter our realities to what we want to make it. And many times when people get off substances and they turn that corner, you see some of the strongest individuals on the planet, because they really tune into themselves, their own abilities to to heal. And it's a lot more than just willpower. Absolutely, it is a disease, like you said. But to get someone at that point where they really are in tune with themselves and their own abilities to live and to cope with what life has to offer, instead of being using something outside of yourself to deal with that.
Absolutely. And Tuesday, that a doctor was sentenced to 15 months prison here in Long Island for oversubscribing painkillers and opioids. And that's another huge problem when you have, in the medical profession, doctors writing prescriptions like candy. And in this case, it's putting this doctor in jail.
Yeah, well, that doctor made an unfortunate move, but sadly, that's very commonplace. I see so many clients today coming in and saying that they self-medicated with marijuana for medical reasons, and I almost have to laugh to myself, because stuff like medical marijuana and painkillers are really for a very small percentage of people who actually need them. But a lot of people are being misinformed, and when they're saying that they're using medical marijuana, I'm not sure that's what that's for. And people are just throwing that card out there when really it's just an excuse for them to get high. But it's very unfortunate when these drugs have such quick access with the people that we put ourselves with trust in, our doctors out there. So I'm glad that I have many of my friends in the field who go to Washington, D.C. and really advocate for stronger restrictions on some of these prescription painkillers, and people acting against medical marijuana for most cases, because it's a slippery slope. Once you get that injury, you're prescribed X medication for pain, and that could lead to so much. So I'm very happy for many of my colleagues who really advocate and fight for stronger restrictions and condemnations for those who practice this and give it out freely.
Yeah, I want to close the segment with this thought: is that the whole sphere of mental health, I believe a big part of drug addiction and suicide is people suffer from anxiety and depression, whether it's hereditary or whether they're just prone to getting in that state where they're so low. And I think in a lot of cases, people that suffer from anxiety and depression, that leads to drug abuse as well as
It can, yeah.
Suicide and those things.
It can. Mental health has a massive crossover with substance abuse, and in pretty much every agency, they'll incorporate mental health and substance abuse within one form of treatment, because it's hard to treat one without the other. Clients will come in and say, hey, I'm abusing marijuana, but I also have anxiety and depression. So do you treat a client to help them to stop marijuana? Well, that would be not so productive, because they still have underlying anxiety and depression as the real core of the issue. So it's about, when you see someone and they're saying that they're smoking, finding or using drugs, investigating the intent. What's kind of going on? Why are you going to those types of drugs, and how could we help you? How could we really change that? But suicide, absolutely, because marijuana has been proven, and alcohol and stuff like that as a depression, and something that affects your decision making. So you're a lot more impulsive to do something that you wouldn't normally do, and just the frontal lobe of your brain, the part that really is in control of your decision making, is very off, particularly when people do it when they're young. So something like suicide is such a quick decision for many that's not thought out, is certainly impacted by any form of substance, particularly marijuana and alcohol. Those are prevalent in a lot of suicides.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough that someone in the throes of substance abuse has to get help, whether 12-step program, seeing a professional, getting the treatment, getting medication, because when you're in the throes of drug, your whole life spirals downward. You don't sleep well, you don't eat well, it costs you your job, it costs you relationships with your family members, you don't function properly, because you're just constantly on the bottom, or you're not feeling well, and you're not acting right, you're lying, you're making excuses, all you can think about is the next drug or the next drink. So it's so important to get the proper help.
Absolutely. I think much like, when people use or abuse, substances, are very much caught up in the moment. Same too with getting help. A lot of them, a lot of people who do abuse drugs really do need to take time off of whatever they're doing, if they're working, if they're doing something, because there has to be a triage of importance of needs. And, when you have an addiction, that should be your first and foremost, priority, which is treating that. And, all your other stuff comes after that, because without, that treatment, who knows if you have that job, if you have that apartment, if you have that anything. So I think people get very short-sighted in, getting treatment and its impact on your day-to-day, functioning. But I got news for you. If a lot of people continue, their paths with, ignoring treatment, they're not going to have those jobs or those houses. So it's very important to recognize the triage of importance of care, of need. And, if you have an addiction, that's the number one priority, for you to get help at all costs, regardless if it maybe takes you out of your job for a bit to really focus on yourself, or relationships with other people. It's worth that time. It's worth that investment, and you're worth that investment. So don't be afraid to make that. Life is a long journey, and to make that small amount of commitment of time, for a couple of weeks, a month, it saves a lifetime. So that's very important.
Very well said, Jay Cooper. Thank you so much. Great segment.
Thank you.
All right.